Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality. While listening, you'll be exposed to inspiring, empowering, and unifying perspectives that I'm highly confident will yield stellar results in your life if you opt to try them on for size. Also, at optimistic.tv, we have officially begun releasing the first few episodes of our new late-night style, consciousness-elevating video variety talk show, Optimistic, which features live visionary art, soul share interviews, retreat guests here at the Mystic Manor, as well as live musical performances. I'm also super excited to announce that we are currently making plans to release the rest of Season 1 on my personal favorite online streaming service. So stay tuned to optimistic.tv to follow the unfolding development of this exciting Optimistic expansion, as we'll be posting more info and release dates there soon. And in the meantime, be sure to check out, of course, the first few episodes at optimistic.tv as well. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very pleased to have Christy Whitman here with me on the show. Christy is a New York Times bestselling author, as well as the channel for spiritual mentors that are here to spread the message of quantum energy mastery, known as the Council. Super excited to have you here, Christy. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to have this conversation. I love these kind of conversations.
Me too. It definitely, it's a great way, it's early AM here in Los Angeles as we're recording, and it's always exciting for me on the day I have, Soul Share set up, because it's such an epic way to begin my day, so yeah, definitely looking forward to it. And I'm going to go ahead and dive in with the first cliche question I always like to ask, and it is this. You're standing in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You got 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
Oh, energy. I love, my passion is my family, manifesting, creating, being in alignment and feeling connected to the divine, knowing that all things are possible. But what I do for a living, if that's that type of passion, is I help people understand that everything is energy. And if they have something in their lives that they don't enjoy, they just have to shift their energy around it.
Right. That is the ultimate. It's that simple and that challenging, right?
All at the same time, yes.
All at the same time. Well, if you would, Christy, I always like to get a little context for who I'm chatting with, and obviously from the intro, you have an interesting life and interesting work that you're doing here. I'd love to get a little bit of the backstory that led to, all that you do in the world.
Absolutely. So I was living in Chicago. Was born and raised in Arizona. And right after college, I moved to Chicago with my best friend, and I was living in the city, and we had a great apartment together, and I had a great paying job. And, I basically was checking the box of everything that I was told would make me happy. And so here I am, I have a fit body, I've got money in the bank, I've got a really great job that I love doing, and, friends and family, and I just felt so unfulfilled. And it was around that time that it was like, is this all there is? Because I'm in my early 20s, and this is depressing, because I had it all, so to speak, but I didn't feel like I had it all. And I was trying to reach for something like, I was raised, Roman Catholic, not that there's anything wrong with that, but for me, it just didn't do it. And I tried to go back and find that kind of connection that I once at some certain points in my childhood had, and it was coming up short for me. And so because when you get to that place of asking, right, you have that thirst or that hunger, obviously the universe conspires with you. And I didn't know this at the time, but I found myself dating a guy that was from California. And we decided that, I was tired of the Chicago winters, and I decided that I'll move to California. So I took a lateral move with my company. And as soon as I got there, one of the first people that he introduced me to was a hairdresser, a hairstylist. And I remember walking in and meeting Janine, and she had this effervescent joy that I'd never seen in another human being before. It was so foreign to me. And I just kept looking at her, and I was gazing at her and just kind of watching her. And finally, being as blunt as I am, I said to her, "Okay, what do you do?" And she just started laughing because she knew, right? She's new. She goes, "I do a very deep spiritual meditative practice." Now, Brandon, this is back in the day. This is 25 years ago. So Janine had this just amazing effervescent joy about her. And I had to know, I'm like, what do you do? And so this is about 25 years ago when she talked about a spiritual meditative practice. I had an image in my mind of some guru sitting on a cloud or a mountain in a yogi position doing
Right.
oming. And so I had no concept of what meditation was. And so she said, "Yeah, I do this meditation, and my meditation teacher lives here. I could give you her phone number." And I'm like, "Oh, great." So I was calling Melanie literally as I was walking out of the salon, and found myself in front of her within the week, and walked into her house. And again, I'm at this point in my life so not woo woo, right? It had no introduction to this, but she had statues of angels, and there were crystals, and I looked like I'd walked into a new age bookstore. And she had us sit down on the floor, and she said to me, the first thing she said is, "You create your own reality." Now, this might be commonplace today, right? More and more people know this. The Secret came out. We've got tons of coaches and people on the internet that talk about this. Back then, there wasn't anybody talking about it. And if it wasn't a book, it was very much hidden inside of a bookstore, if it even was in the bookstore. Otherwise, it was in a new age kind of bookstore. So when she said, you create your own reality, something in me like woke up. And I felt this visceral just shifting. And then my logical mind kicked in again. And I said, I know this to be true. I feel it, but how? My how came out, right? And then she said, well, you're either attracting things to you or repelling things from you by the way you think. And again, I sat with that and went, wow, yes, I know this. How do I know this? How? Right. So I kept coming back with a how. And so she says, I want you to, before I can even explain this to you, go ahead, go home for the week and pay attention to your thoughts. Now, Brandon, this is another moment in time for me. I'm like, pay attention to what my thoughts, what are you talking about? My thoughts are my thoughts. And she explained to me, no, you're not your thoughts. You could actually choose your thoughts. And just by being the witness to your thoughts, you're going to get a lot of information about yourself. And I thought she was insane. I was like, how could I choose my thought? I mean, I know I can change my mind, but my thoughts about things are my thoughts about things. And like, the whole thing of emotions, I can't choose my emotions. My emotions just are a reaction kind of thing. There's no way. So I started paying attention to my thoughts, and I did my homework for that week. And I couldn't believe how negative I was. I was constantly complaining inside of my head or to others. I was judging or condemning myself, God, others. I was like, wow, I didn't realize how negative I was. And when I started to dig deep into it, what I really got from the mindset is that there's a difference between lack, a mindset of lack, and a mindset of abundance. And that the lack feels bad and that the abundance feels good. So I started digging into this. I wanted to read everything. I wanted to see any kind of spiritual teacher speak, and listen back in the day to Wayne Dyer and Marianne Williamson, and listen to everything they had to say on the subject. And about 5 years into this, so about 20 years ago, all of a sudden one night, as I became a feverishly meditator, and I was meditating at night, and I saw a cover of a book. And on the cover, it said Perfect Pictures by Christy Whitman. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I went to sleep. 1:05 in the morning, I was woken up by this voice literally talking inside my head. And I couldn't stop it. I couldn't turn it off. And I got up and just started automatically writing. So I was up for a couple of hours, just letting like the first sentence, the first paragraph, the first chapter literally download through me. So I forgot about it, went to bed. Next night, 1:05 in the morning. It happened for 7 nights in a row.
Wow. Always at 105?
Yes, always at
Wow.
1:05.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I kept getting this download. And when I thought about it, I'm like, I think I'm writing a book. Because as I started reading it, I was like, this isn't me. This isn't the information I have access to. This is coming from someplace else. So I reached out to Terry Cole Whitaker, who was one of the speakers at the time and authors that came and spoke at a place that I was, a Reading Church of Religious Science at that time that I was attending, like a Unity church. And I asked her, I said, how do you get a book published? And she said, go online. Again, this was 20 years ago. Go online and find a literary agent and, pitch your proposal or whatever. So I did that, totally beginner's luck. And the publisher was a print-on-demand publisher. I had no idea about publishing. So I got the book published. All my friends and family bought the book, who were definitely not the target audience for this particular book, right? And Oprah wasn't calling. I couldn't understand it. But so I decided to start speaking in, Unity churches and spiritual bookstores. And as I was speaking and doing workshops, talking about the contents of the book, people would ask me, do you coach? And I had I was like, coach, what do you mean? Like a cheerleading coach, football coach? Mm-hmm. No frame of it. I didn't know life coaches existed. And they would explain to me what life coaching was. And I'm like, you know what, just give me a call. I was a pharmaceutical rep at the time, right? I'm like, just give me a call and I'll help you through. And what I was helping them do that I didn't quite understand until years later was shifting their energy around certain issues. And when they did, their life started to change. So they would call me back and, I loved what was happening during the sessions. And they would call me back and go, oh my God, something I've been struggling with for decades, finally shifted. And can I work with you more? And what do you charge? And I'm like, I don't coach. This is like, I don't do this. Right. So I fell into it because I loved it so much. And I was just dedicated to continue to help people while I was doing my day job. And then I started to go to, to school for it, got certified, that sort of thing. And so fast forward 20 years later, I now certify coaches. I've certified over 3,500 law of attraction coaches. I have 7 books, 2 that have hit the New York Times. I've been able to really be just helpful to so many different people that are wanting to change their lives. I've got to have front row seat to that. And now I get to channel the council, which is just such a gift and a treat all at the same time.
Wow, that's quite the journey. And that's, something that is important to note. I always hear, every person is a best-selling author. And it's like, I think if you sell a book, you're a best-selling author. And a New York Times best-selling author is something different, right? Yes. And so that's something that I always thought, I wrote a book before I started this podcast and then kind of shelved it. And one day I'll most likely come out with it and others, but I haven't quite gotten around to that. And I thought it would be funny to say, when I do, I always like to just kind of like be silly about things like not a best-selling author, Brandon Beacham, like here. So, but New York Times best-selling author, that's something, that's really kind of rare, right? So.
Yeah, for me, it's just the way I am. It's like, if I'm going to do something, I want to do it the best. So when I became an author 20 years ago, I'm like, what's the best? Like, how do you know you're the best author? And it was like either a New York Times or, Pulitzer Prize. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So I'll go for New York Times.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, cool. And very interesting how many people, it seems, especially now, are having these openings of like channeling type experiences. Of course, you're sort of OG at this point. You've been doing it for a minute, and now it just seems like it's something that is more and more prevalent in the world. And so I'd love to just hear about what tell us a little bit about the council and what the MO is there.
Yes. Well, it's amazing because we've had people like the Seth and, Abraham Hicks and my teachers, my meditation teachers, Oren and Daben, 25 years ago, that really paved the way to show that channeling is not just something that only a few people can do. It's not like Jesus Christ could do it and nobody else can, right? It's something that, we're all have that available to us if, number one, we desire it, and number two, we keep leaning in and saying yes to it. And so for me, I mean, I started the channeling process, 20 years ago when my first book came out, and all of my books have been channeled like that, meaning it's like I received this like message, go get a pen. It's like something's coming.
Yeah.
And I have to then go get a pen and paper. And sometimes I'll find myself at 3:00 in the morning on a cruise ship writing a book, because it's downloading through me.
Right.
My book, Quantum Success, was that case. Everybody was sleeping on a cruise ship, and the only place I had to go was the bathroom. And I sat down in the bathroom on a cold linoleum floor for 3 hours, just downloading and downloading this information. So yeah, and every step along the way, I've just really leaned in. And when I was told by the council, which I didn't understand at the time, I was seeing images of creating a place where people could literally come each and every week and just work with their energy, work with the things that happen on a day-to-day basis that, kind of might sideswipe us or bushwhack us, and to help them heal. And it was during this time that I was in this, it's called the Sacred Circle of Light, with about 6 women. And we were just finishing for the day. And there was the last woman, she was talking and asking questions. And all of a sudden it was like 9 people were talking to me all at once. It sometimes feels like how both my kids, if they're both talking to me, asking me something at once, right? I'm like, stop, right. I can't hear.
Yeah, right.
And all of a sudden my consciousness went out, and I could have sworn, Brandon, that my body flung over the chair, and I could hear them. I could hear what they were hearing, but I was like kind of like off to the side. And what's wild is that when I saw the recording after, I was straight up. I had an accent. The information that they were sharing is not anything I have ever said before. And I got done, and I'm crying, and the ladies are crying because it was so profound. And ever since then, they've been coming through. And so the council is a collection of higher ascended masters. Obviously, it's frequencies of energy that come in through me. And they really are, their kind of niche, if you will, in the channeling world is to help people understand how to live a most fulfilling, divinely designed life here. And, they're not here to teach us about, although they can, and they've been asked questions about the other side and how do souls work and, that type of thing. But what they're passionate about, or what they're really here to talk about, is how do we master our energy so that we're mastering our lives, since we're the one that creates our lives.
Right. Wow. And so that is, you just mentioned the latest book, Quantum Success. Very interesting to know that came through in the toilet.
No, it wasn't on the toilet.
Speaking of 7 essential laws for a thriving, joyful, and prosperous relationship with work and money. So what better way? It makes me think of a friend who was here on retreat, and she's shout out Bree if you're listening. She does what does she call it? Toilet philosophy, I think. YouTube, and it's really taken off in the last 6 months or so. And it's hilarious. It's her on the toilet, talking about what philosophy and whatnot. So maybe you could give us some insight into, that download and what those laws are.
Absolutely. Well, I've been talking about, and I've been applying the 7 essential laws for 25 years. Those are the laws that I really learned about and started to apply. And universal laws, like law of attraction that most people know about, I mean, it's like gravity, right? It's like you don't have to sit, neither one of us are sitting here thinking about gravity and for our bodies to have to stay on the chair. It's just happening, whether we're talking about it or not. And so the universal laws are happening all the time, whether we're aware of it or not, or even thinking about it. And so there's 7 different ones. There's a lot to go into. Do you want me to go into and just kind of give a top line view on each one of them?
Yeah. Obviously, they can go dive deep in the book, but yeah, I think a top line view would be nice. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So the first one is law of attraction. I always like to think of law of attraction as like a boomerang. It's like what you are sending out, it comes back. So I think that's the one that really needs a lot of understanding in the sense of from an energy master perspective, because there really is like as a human being, we are energy beings, and we have three ways that we process energy. We are energy receivers. So we have trillions of receptor sites on our, our trillions of cells, right, in our body, which makes up our body. And each of those cells have receptor sites. And those receptor sites need to be filled with energy. And so if we're not the ones deliberately filling up ourselves up with energy, we're going to be filled up by default by what our families say, or what our friends say, or what the people at the grocery store are feeling, like what's in the airwaves. Our receptor sites are going to pick up on that. And then that affects our state. So we are energy receivers. We're energy containers. What do we hold inside of our body? And then we are energy transmitters. And we transmit energy by the words that we say, the thoughts that we think, the perspectives or the beliefs that we hold, the emotions that we either process or don't, and then the actions that we take. Those are the 5 ways that we're transmitting energy out, that we're generating energy. And so we are the ones then that when we're generating this energy, the law of attraction gives us more of the same, of that same frequency and vibration.
Right.
So it's a boomerang. What we send out in our own individual consciousness comes back to us in the form of circumstances, situations, events, these kind of things. The second law is the law of deliberate creation, where we get to say, wait, I don't want to do this by default. I don't want to be filled up with energy from past, stories, or a past mindset, or past beliefs from my parents, or, what society's going in. I want to be in a better, positive place. So I'm the one that deliberately gets to choose what energy I want to bring in. So I get to align with the energy of joy. I get to think the thoughts of abundance or success. I'm the one that chooses that. So I'm deliberately then putting myself in a state where then the vibration that's going out is reflected of more of what I want and less of what I don't.
Right.
The law of allowing is the law where if we're feeling constriction of any kind about ourselves, about people we know, about the universe, if there's any type of constriction, we're not in an allowing space. There's a lot of law of allowing that could be really useful right now on the planet with people and their views and things like that, for letting people have the views and the beliefs that they have, and understand that we have our own views and beliefs. But it's as we judge each other, or we condemn each other, criticize each other, we ourselves are not in an allowing place, because the divine that's breathing us, the divine that is bringing light down to us, and that is, really created us in our own individual consciousness, it doesn't go there. It doesn't go in lack and limitation and judgment and all that. So when we are going out of alignment, we are not allowing the whole power, the whole thrust of the universe through us. So that's a big one. My favorite law that really pulls all of them together is the law of sufficiency and abundance. So the law of sufficiency and abundance, it's not just the law of abundance, right? If you were to look at things as a spectrum, as almost like a table from one pole or to the other pole, on one side of the spectrum, you have lack, perspective, separation, drama, chaos, all that always feels bad. And it's never in alignment with who we really are. Abundance, on the other hand, is in alignment with who we are and the divine that breathes us, that creative being. And abundance always feels good. Well, there's a tipping point, right? There's that, how do we go from lack into abundance? There's that tipping point of satisfaction. And when you can find in your thoughts and your emotions that place of looking for what's right and good, feeling the positive, looking for the positive aspects, feeling grateful for what you have now. Maybe it's not over the top what you ultimately want, but you can look for what's good now and what you can appreciate now. And that's important, because most people, and I know that's where I came from, are mired in lack. And we cannot ever create what we want when we're in lack, because we're in lack of it, right? So it doesn't matter if it's a lover or a pile of money, whatever we're wanting. If we're focused on the fact that we don't have it, we're going to continue to create more by law of attraction of not having it or struggling with it. And we need to shift into the havingness of it, the abundance of it, right?
Absolutely.
So the fifth law is a law of pure potentiality. And this is a fun law because I'm looking at a beautiful Sedona mountain right now. And it's like pure potentiality created all that. Like no human man or woman created that. And, you know, the amount of potential that is in our universe, the fact that we get to be a conduit for creative genius ideas, and that if we have that idea, if we have that desire, there is the potential for it to be fulfilled. That's amazing. It's exciting, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's just pure potential for anything to manifest into anything, for energy to seek itself into a form, to seek itself into some expression of some kind of form. And then there's the law of detachment, which is different from the law of allowing. The law of detachment is, yes, focus on what you want, put your mind there, you know, think about the things that you want, but the who, the where, the what, the how, all of that stuff, we have to be in a place of understanding that we have our perspective as a human, and as no matter how, you know, open-minded we might be and how in potentiality we might be, the divine always has a bird's eye view on our life and has a more broader view and has better ideas for us than we can even think of. So there's a lot of times the hows and the things like that we need to let go of and surrender so that we can be in alignment with what feels good and not worry about the hows and the whats and things like that. So detachment is very important when manifesting our desires. And then the last and final one is the law of polarity. Here on planet Earth, here in these human bodies, we have polarity. And, you know, we have evidence of it as extreme hot on one end, extreme cold on the other. Well, there's a whole spectrum in between of different degrees and different temperatures. When we are in lack, for example, and we're thinking about some subject, maybe it's money, there's a spectrum. You know, some people are really in lack, some people are in kind of lack. You know, there's a whole spectrum. And to know where we are on that spectrum based on how we feel gives us a good indication of what we need to deliberately shift into. And then therefore, what law of attraction ultimately will deliver us. So all 7 laws work together in unison to be able to bring us the life that we really desire. And I always say that, though, the most important law that really puts all of them, like the lock and the key, together is the law of sufficiency and abundance.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you've broken that down so, so well. And, I think one of the most challenging ones for people can be the detachment, right? It's like people get so hung up on the how and the what. And if you can just, trust the process, trust the mystery, do your part to maintain and elevate your vibration, and then, allow the mystery to unfold. And like you said, higher self or source or whatever you want to call it, it can see the chessboard way better than you can.
Yes.
And so allowing, room for co-creation, a dance with, your higher self. I believe this is sort of the art of, manifestation, is learning this piece of it. And also knowing that, there's all these potentialities. And, one guy named Derek Rydell, I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, I've had on the show.
Yeah, he's a friend of mine.
Yeah, he's great. He talks about you've heard him talk about the law of emergence. Mm-hmm. It's like, look, it's all in there. The oak is in the acorn. It's a matter of creating the right conditions so that it can actually, fully be its full potentiality. And so I think that's a really powerful piece of, kind of exploring all this too. There's a lot of nuance in there, and I love the way you've just broken it all down.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting because, I think the confusion where people, we're that we have to take the action. Yes, we do have to take the action. We're the legs and the ears and the eyes of the divine. And that is our part in the co-creation process. But the flow of the energy and that inspiration to guide us where to go and when to go, that's when we're really guided. That's where the manifestations literally manifest as if they're miracles, because we're willing to do our part, but not try to overdo and try to get in the way of the divine's part. The divine can do its job so much better than we can.
Yeah. Give the divine something to do, for goodness sake. Like,
right. I don't have to do it
don't,
all.
yeah, right. They need something to do over there, So, yeah, don't be selfish. Before we continue on with today's episode, I'd like to take a quick moment to tell you about our new sponsor, NOOM. I agreed to do this promo spot because I am super impressed with the futuristic and simple process that NOOM has implemented to revolutionize diet and wellness. NOOM is the unique, habit-changing solution that helps users learn to develop a new relationship with food. And it's not a diet. No food is good or bad. As we talk about on the show all the time, it's all about proper balance and having good habits. And NOOM just teaches you how to look inside your own mind and make better decisions for yourself. Sounds familiar, right? It's based in psychology, so I'm personally really excited about starting to use it to understand my own thought patterns better. And they make it super easy to do with a minimal commitment of only 10 minutes a day, which is essential for someone like me with so much on my plate. No pun intended. So if you'd like to take the journey with me and sign up for a trial, head over to noom.com/positivehead to start your trial today. That's spelled NOOM.com/positivehead. I mean, what do you have to lose except outdated habits and perhaps a few extra pounds by signing up for the trial? Once again, NOOM.com/positivehead. Let's talk about some of the things that block people. You hear a lot, stress, of course, especially now, is a big thing that, people, it gets in the way. It cuts off a lot of people from their magic, their yes. creative potential. For people wanting to sort of process stress more efficiently, what do you recommend?
Well, there's five ways that we have energy. Stress is just built up energy. Some people say, well, there's, depression, there's anxiety, those kind of emotions. And the truth is that anxiety and depression are not emotions. They are either suppression of an emotion or an amplification of an emotion. So for example, stress, can lead to anxiety in a lot of people. And what it is that they're just not processing the fear or the worry that they're feeling, right?
Yep.
And for example, I was telling you, right, this morning we're staying at a rental home in Sedona, and we had our fire alarm go off, and it was so loud and so obnoxious and kind of scary for our kids. And, it's like we have to stop and assess the situation. Okay, we got a fire alarm going off. Is there fire? Look around, see what's going on. And emotions are so much like that fire alarm. Their emotions are useful to let us know something's going on within us. And if we ignore it, if we suppress it, if we try to knock the thing off the wall, right, and not listen to it and not gain the information that it has for us, then we continue to have it get over and over and over amplified, causing more issues and stress. And yes, emotions and imprints of emotions, most people don't know how to process their emotions. So emotions are one of those things where we need to be masterful. We need to be aware of, okay, I'm feeling this. I need to just sit with it. Most people get their mind engaged with the feeling process. And then what happens there is the mind will then continue to feed the thoughts of the emotions. And so they create this like cycle, right? Instead, we need to be able to isolate them and to feel the emotions, let yourself just feel the emotions and process it. So whatever someone's feeling stressed about, stop and ask yourself, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? And to sit with the actual energy of the emotion, because then it will start to dissipate it. Because as you feel the pulsation of the energy in your body, it takes about 90 seconds to actually process that emotion. And once it's cleared, once you start moving it out, you can then bring in the energy that we're talking about, being receptive mode to joy or to faith or to, fun or whatever it is. But the energy is there. And then it's important to understand that once the emotions, which is really the biggest energetic vortex or the energetic vibration that comes out of us, then we have the ability to change the thoughts, right? We can then manage our thoughts better because the emotions aren't there feeding it so intensely.
Right.
And it really does start, with the words that we speak. It says in the Bible, in the beginning, there was the word. And when you think about it, the whole entire creation process starts with a word. And when someone, people would ask me this for years, like if someone, there's a lot of information that you shared on, the universal laws. How do we practically in our lives? What's a practical way that we can apply it? And I would tell them over and over, you got to watch your words. And then they would ask me, well,
Yep.
like for
Spelling.
example,
You're casting spells.
yeah, exactly. And so your words are your wand, right?
That's what abracadabra means, right? I create as I speak. So I love that.
Exactly. So what I created is a 30-day, it's a free 30-day program called Watch Your Words. And then we have a special link for your viewers to get to it, your viewers, your listeners. And what it is every day you get a video, sometimes a minute and a half, sometimes up to 4 minutes. And it tells you three things. The video tells you what is the word or phrase you want to eliminate and why, because it's mired in that. And it's pulling down your energy. It's creating more stress. It's creating more of what you don't want. And then what is the word or phrase to say instead? Because you're trying to communicate something, right? So, for example, what I was hearing when the pandemic hit and everything was happening, people were like, oh my God, I miss this. I miss going out for lunch. I miss going to a sporting event. I miss, right?
Yep.
And I would even say to my kids, focus on what you appreciate. So instead of saying, I miss this, say, I appreciate getting to play soccer, or I'm really looking forward to getting back to going to a sporting event. And you're saying and communicating the same thing, but you're doing it in a way that one restricts you and makes you feel bad, because nobody likes to say things like, I miss. Nobody wants to miss or feel like they're missing something, but it starts with our words. If you change it to, I am so looking forward to having a hot date with my husband when everything opens up again, or I'm looking forward to going to a concert, the energy is so different because you're focused towards what you do want and not towards what you don't want,
yes.
what you don't have.
Yeah, I love that. I always use the example of Mother Teresa when she was asked, to march against the war in Vietnam. And she said, I'll never do that, but have a march for peace and I'll be there.
Exactly.
Because she understood this principle, right?
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I think that's such a powerful thing, taking the scenario, quarantine coronavirus is such a great thing to use as an example. There's so many things to focus on that are, I miss, or that are wrong or bad or whatever, from a certain perspective. And there's also how, wow, I got to actually slow down for once, and I got to spend more time with my family and my kids, and, where are all the gifts? It got me to reassess. How many people will come out of this and will say, oh my gosh, that, quarantine was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it got me to reassess this rat race, that I was sort of on, and it forced me to pause and reassess, and then as a result pivot and actually, take me down a path of something more fulfilling ultimately.
Absolutely. That's what the council was saying, is that, this is the first time in history where, we've been talking about universal laws, right? This is the first time in history where there is a universal situation where it is not a race issue. It's not a woman or man issue. It's not a country issue. It's not anything. Everybody is in this together. And yet, so it's a universal thing, and each and every person will have their own unique experience of it.
Right.
And what's happening and what happened and what's continuing to, I still see it with clients, this is a time of amplification. What has been worrying people under the surface, well, the fire alarm is going off, and it's going off loud, and you can't not pay attention to it. You got to assess the situation now. You got to do something about it. Whereas it might have been like a nice little murmur, maybe you worried about money, and that was kind of like a constant under the surface. Now it's amplifying that. That's something you have to shift. Or for someone else, they might be like, I'm really lonely and I want a partner and I can't seem to find one, and I'm doing all this stuff, and now they're in lockdown by themselves. Wow, loneliness is really going to get amplified.
Yeah. Right.
But it's a gift.
Yeah. And once you get the message, you can move on from it. Once you learn the lesson, it no longer is necessary to continue repeating. And that's something that I think, a lot of people, no matter how much you've went down this path of self-growth, self-development, spirituality, I think everyone can look at their life, no matter where you're at in that journey, and say, okay, I can definitely see patterns of cycles that continue to show up in my life. And hold on, why is this repeating itself? And you still haven't quite learned what you need to learn from it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so now, what a perfect time. Let's do it. Let's look at the energy of it, because there's the mindset part of it is important, obviously, because it's part of the equation, but it goes beyond the mind. It goes beyond. It really is a energetic being conversation. And so if someone's saying affirmations until they're blue in the face, but the same things are manifesting, there's something deeper under the surface going on. There might be an imprint energetically that really is. I mean, let's really talk about what law of attraction is. You're moving around life. Things are going great. You're feeling joyful. You're excited, or whatever is happening. And all of a sudden you get someone says something to you or doesn't, or something happens or doesn't, something bushwhacks, surprises you. And instead of being open and allowing with the emotions to be able to really feel them and process them, we constrict. And in that constriction, we kind of close down. It's kind of like being in a soccer game, and all of a sudden the soccer ball's coming at you, and you put your hands up to guard your face, but then the soccer ball's done. You're not even at the game anymore, and you're still holding up your arms in protection. And that's the place where the energy goes in and it gets imprinted. And like a caged animal, energies can't stay still. It spirals, it moves. Energy is constantly moving. And so that's the vortex through which energy starts showing up evidence. That's what we pull things in from that imprint, may not even be aware of it. And then we have this imprint, and then we start to see evidence of it. And then we start looking at it going, well, that's true. See, my life is limited. I don't have these opportunities, or I can't find a person, or I'm bad at relationships, or whatever it is, because that's what the imprint is. And then the evidence keeps, compounding on it, because it's, of course, being attracted by that energy vortex. And then that's what becomes our reality, until we then try to deliberately change it and do affirmations and try just the mindset stuff. And it works for a little bit, and we get some evidence. And then it's what's required is a deeper level of education and understanding. Instead of most of us didn't stop at kindergarten or third grade. We continued.
Right.
We went, we continue to learn. And that's really what it is. And most people that I see with law of attraction, they're like, what's wrong with me? How come, this works for other people? Or how come this person can manifest their stuff, but there's got to be something wrong with me? No, you just probably in 5th grade need to go to 6th grade.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. So many, I think back to a childhood friend who is kind of a silly character in a lot of ways, and is just sort of very over the top and dramatic, and a lot of ups and downs energetically with their mood. And I always think back to him, when this is going way back 15, 20 years ago, when I first started on my own spiritual journey, and I was so passionate talking and teaching, talking as I learn, right? Teaching best what I most needed to learn, as I like to say. And so he was around it all the time. And he would get, as a very excitable person, get really excited about it all too at some point, and then he'd have his, sort of very big swings in emotion. And I always remember the time one time he said to me, yeah, I tried that spiritual stuff, law of attraction stuff. It doesn't work, and it's like, you look at his efforts, it's like literally like a kindergartner saying, oh yeah, I already tried that schooling thing. It didn't really teach me anything.
Right. I tried to do math and it didn't work for me. So I give it up.
Yeah, right. It doesn't work. Like, so yeah, that really is a big piece of it, is just, it's like the Chinese proverb, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. The path is the goal, and you're going to, we're learning. It is it's meant to be challenging dance, and you're going to have breakthroughs, I believe that then, it's kind of like the journey is like a spiral. You circle back on things that you feel like you've already, hold on, I already completely processed this. Well, maybe there's another layer to the onion that needs to be released, right? And I think that confuses people.
Yeah, when I found out that, because I remember thinking, I had an issue of being a pain in the ass because I was told from a very young kid that I was a pain in the ass. Like my parents literally actually told me that. And that was my nickname. And then they decided to shorten it to PETA. And my sister got into the act. And, and so that was something like whenever I had asked for something, I felt like I was being a pain in the ass. Or whenever I was in relationships with people, I was really nervous. And so that was something that for me, I had to really hit on. I mean, that was the first therapy sessions, right? I mean, that was early on stuff. And then as that spiral happened and I would hit it again, I'd be like, what in the heck? I already did this, right?
Yeah.
But understanding that it is a spiral and that you hit it at a different level with a different awareness, that's when then it goes away. That's when it can be like a corkscrew, it just leaves, right? But there's work to be done.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about habits and certainly how a lot of times they can contribute to feeling guilt and shame. And I feel like, guilt and shame are something that really hold people back. And I know you have some insight on that very topic. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. So guilt is one of those emotions. Like if we talk about all the different emotions, guilt is an emotion that's wired into us to help us feel or know if we're on track. And if like we do something to deliberately harm or hurt somebody, we're wired to feel a whoosh of guilt, right?
Yeah.
But so many people misuse guilt. They feel guilty. Like I know, working moms that if they're not with their kids, they feel guilty because they're at work. And then if they're at work or they're with their kids, they feel guilty because they're not focusing on their business or their work. So this woman is constantly mired in this like lower vibration of guilt because that's what she feels like she should be doing something different. And that's where the guilt comes into, and then it leads into shame. And that's one of those words of watching your words is anytime you're saying to yourself or to others, well, you should, or I should, one of those should is one of those things that it leads to feeling guilt and shame. And so it really is about, again, the language that we speak, the words that we say, because if you shift your language around it, like, what do I want to be doing right now? I want to be with my kids right now. I'm going to let go and literally just find that energy release of being with your work, of doing the work and just being present fully with your kids. But guilt and shame are one of those frequencies and energies that pull you off of being present. And that's kind of what we talked about when we talked about the law of sufficiency and abundance. Any of those emotions like guilt, shame, anger, resentment, hurt, any of those, sadness, grief, any of those are coming from a place of lack. They never feel good. And they always take away our presence to be in the moment and our presence to be with our co-creator, because our co-creator doesn't go there with us.
Right.
Our divine self won't meet us there.
Right. Yeah, that is definitely well put. I love that idea. It's like, really, it's Michael Singer talks about this in a way that I love, in the book, The Untethered Soul, in how important it is to have your heart open, essentially, in all situations. And if your heart is closed, you've cut off the chi, the life force, the source, the creator, and if you're feeling guilt and shame, then your heart is closed. You have now cut off. It's like you're driving a Ferrari that has an empty tank of gas, right? And so, I think that is really important to constantly check in with yourself and say, okay, how's my heart? Where is it at? Is it open?
Right.
Am I angry? Am I guilty? Am I shameful? Am I, and if so, what can I do to shift that energy? I assume you have some advice for people who are finding themselves here, how to sort of navigate their way out of it.
Absolutely. I mean, the 3-step process that I would say is having the awareness, right? Having the awareness of I'm feeling off. My gas tank is empty, right? I'm not feeling good, or I'm feeling mad, or I'm feeling this. Like having the awareness of whatever is the stimulus that created that feeling. And then the second part is having the acceptance of it, to sit with it and say, I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling resentful or guilty or whatever it is. And to literally be with, like you said, with an open heart, with an open body, feeling yourself instead of constricting or trying to resist or suppress the emotions, try to get rid of them, but to actually be with them. And when you look at it not as a, oh, this is an emotion of anger, because so many of us were told, oh, you shouldn't be angry, right? Or you can't be sad. If you just bypass the labels of what these emotions are and just feel the energy pulsation of it, and just be willing to accept the pulsation of the energy, it actually starts to dissipate and releases. And then you can bring in the energy that you do want to experience. And then you take action from that point. Sometimes the action might be communicating to somebody. Sometimes the action might be, taking a different road and doing something, or calling someone, or whatever it is. But the action might be just sitting in the place of feeling faith and connection with your divine. And there's so many different actions that we could take. But understanding that everything is energy, our emotions are energy. If we suppress it and we don't experience it, it's going to continue to be there. It doesn't go away. And so by processing, I mean, that's the work that I do with clients, right? It's like, it's looking at in the hologram. And that's of course what I do with the council, through what they do through me, is being able to see someone's hologram, seeing where the stuck imprints of emotions are, and help them release it as energy.
Yeah, that's definitely that is the dance. Finding a way to process and not hold on, not repress, not stuff it down, not look away from it, not avoidance. We are here to process, and as a result, lighten up, right? As we continue to process these denser energies that are tied to our soul's, history and trajectory. It's the, and I like to put it as, we've all signed up for this adventure and physicality, and the only way through it is through it. The avoidance thing is just never going to work, because you signed, the way I kind of view it is, we've signed a contract. So, okay, I'm going in, I'm going to go into the 3D maze, and I'm going to go through many lifetimes and find my way out the other end and be better for it. And you can't get halfway through the game and say, oh, never mind, I'm going to avoid and tap out. And it's like, well, you'll just be stuck on that level forever. That's sort of how I view it.
Yeah. So, the council really looks at it as, we're all divinely designed, just like each one of us has divinely designed to have 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 nose, 2 ears. None of us are running around with beaks or tails. I mean, we're divinely designed as human beings with these certain physical attributes. And then on the other side of it, we're both physical and non-physical. We have in our spiritual DNA to thrive and to feel good, to be in well-being, to be in abundance, to be successful at whatever endeavor we want, to have loving and supportive relationships. That's the divine design. And when we find ourselves not creating those, because there's an overlay of what we believe ourselves to be capable of, or who we are, or what we deserve, or what we think we deserve, or what we think we're worthy of, or there's all this overlay of conditioned stuff that's just not true of who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. So you also talk about people having inner and outer vices. Can you explain that?
Yes, I have a Vice Freedom Challenge and program that I do with people, because, a lot of times when we're in alignment with our divine, we feel good, right? But if we don't feel good, a lot of times we reach for vices, and they might be outer vices such as smoking, drinking, smoking weed, name it, gambling, shopping, coffee, sugar, the list goes on and on of all the things that we do to try to make ourselves have a temporary fix, if you will, or to feel better in the moment, which is temporary. And then there's on the inside, there's vices that we do to try to make ourselves feel better, such as like comparison, right? If I compare myself to that person, I'm going to be cutting that person down. So I'm going to feel elevated. It's like a one up, one
Yeah.
down kind of a system, right? Or
Right.
complaining or, procrastination. These are vices that people use that are not something they do on the necessarily physical, like put into their physical bodies, but they do internally. And it's something that is equally as damaging because it pulls us away again. If the goal is, if there is a spiritual goal, to be a fully embodied human being in alignment with your divine, the divine that's breathing you, and to be co-creative of this experience, to hear through the ears of the divine and see through the eyes of the divine, and to be able to, just expand into creation through your fun and through the joy of it, through abundance, then doing the inner vices or the outer vices pulls us further away from that center point.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I think, and it's something that's almost expected with people. You notice people are like, oh yeah, that's my vice. That's my vice. It's almost like, oh, hey, what's your vice?
Exactly.
Like that's something that we have to have.
We don't have to have it. That's for sure. It's just something that we use to try to get through, when we don't know how to. So, it's something that we've learned. It's kind of like a tool, right? If your dad always used a hammer to fix everything, you're going to reach for the hammer because that's what you saw. That's what you learned. But when you realize that, hey, I'm an adult. Hey, what's that? That's a saw. Oh, cool. I could use something different than my family did, right? It's something different that I could use, and I'm gonna use that tool instead. It seems to work better when I need to cut something instead of trying to cut something with a hammer, right?
Yep, absolutely. Well, one of the things that I love to get is, I love to hear good stories from my guest. A story of synchronicity or serendipity or a positive paranormal story. And something tells me you have more than one up your sleeve, but one will suffice. Any fun stories you have to share with us?
Yes, I have. I have so many. It's incredible. But one that just really pops out is my sister, who was 11 years older than me. She was the person that kind of brought me on my journey to self-discovery because she was a drug addict. I mean, talk about a vice. She drank a 6-pack of Diet Coke every day, a pot of coffee. She would smoke weed. She did cocaine. I mean, she was addicted to food, everything, everyone and everything. And
wow.
she was the first one that gave me my first personal development book. And so she kind of got me on that road. Well, it was interesting because she had been clean of cocaine for about 5 years and went into a major depression and committed suicide. And
oh, wow.
when she did that, I was living in Northern California at the time, and she was living in Southern California. And my mom and dad and my boyfriend at the time and her best friend, we all went to her apartment and cleaned out her stuff. And we wanted to have her cremated because that's what she wanted. And we were going to spread her ashes over Sunset Cliffs. And it was incredible because when we were there, I had the ashes in my hands. I could totally feel the pulsation of her energy. And as I was putting them over the cliffs, a big wind, just like it wasn't windy there at all, but all of a sudden there's just wind just came, and some of the ashes went right on the cliff. And right in that moment, all of a sudden, a huge black crab came out of nowhere and went and landed on that on the ashes. Now, it's more significant to understand. She was a Cancer, was very into astrology. Cancer is a sign of a crab.
Wow.
A crab is a sign of Cancer.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have tons of stories with her about music in certain orders on radio stations that were different genres that were played in the same order on different occasions, the same 3 songs. But that moment when that crab came out and landed on those ashes is almost to say, I'm okay. So yeah.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's very cool, very intense, and it's reassuring too to because you often hear with this idea with suicides that there can be a lot of issue on the other side, or speaking of shame or guilt or what have you, energy that kind of you carry on that maybe holds you back. So any sort of and who knows, right, exactly until we're there, how it is that piece functions. But it's that's to me really reassuring that, that sort of a sign would happen in that moment, that she's indeed okay.
I've communicated with her definitely, and the council obviously has too. There's no of that religious training of, she's now in purgatory, so she's back into pure positive energy, and we'll get to, if she chooses, at her choosing as a soul, come back into a body or not, right? But it's nice to know that on the other side, they're all doing pretty darn fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the idea of a eternal hell or something does not, with me, resonate in any way. The thought or idea that maybe someone, gets to the other side. I mean, I've heard it put, the only sort of judging that happens is self-judgment, right? You're doing your life review, or, there's regret that you did this or that. And sometimes maybe for some length of experience that holds you back or what have you, is something that I've, heard or has at least seems like a reasonable thought, as opposed to the religious idea of, okay, I'm going to put you here, confuse you, give you 70 years and then torture you for eternity if you get it wrong. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I love you. It's like, I don't know about your love, exactly. God.
Exactly. Well, I so appreciate you having me on the show, Brandon. I really appreciate our discussion. It's been awesome.
It's been so good. I definitely would love to circle back. I feel like it went so quick, and there's so much more that you have to share. Perhaps we can reconnect again sometime. And in the meantime, for those who want to connect with you, and you had mentioned your program that you were going to connect people with, maybe you can tell us a little bit about that and how people can connect with you in general.
Absolutely. So Watch Your Words is the website, and we have it Watch Your Words, plural, / Brandon, BRANDON. Hey, that's your name.
So it'd be, just to throw that in real quick, it'd be watchyourwords.com / Brandon, right?
Yes, thank you. Watchyourwords.com. Thank you. I'm a little goofy on my ats and .coms today. So yes, watchyourwords.com and then / Brandon. And you can also go to ChristyWhitman.com. Any way you spell it, you're going to get there. I'm on socials, so there's lots of ways to find me. And I would love to come back and chat with you another time. That would be awesome.
Yeah, cool. And so on watchyourwords.com / Brandon, it's BRANDON. And that is going to, you had mentioned it earlier, it's your, it's like a video program that they're going to get access to?
Yeah, it's 30 days. So every day for 30 days, they get sent in their email
a
video.
That's great.
And it tells you the word that you absolutely do not want to be saying. Why gives you I'm a why person. Like, I want to know, why? What's the reason behind this? Yeah. So I'm educating in those videos, and then also what to change it to instead, so that you know exactly what you want to be moving forward with. The example I gave was, I miss this versus I'm really looking forward to this. It's a very different energy. It's a very different creation. It's a very different start of the way you live your life.
Yep. Yeah. I always like the example of, you hear people a lot of times say, I can't wait. For. And that's a big one. It's like, because in a sense, you're dishonoring the now, right? It's like, I'm looking forward to, and not at the expense of the now, which is the present, which is a present, which is your gift, right? Yep. And so, I definitely, what a great program. I always say it's like the story that you're telling is everything. And, you're casting a spell with the words that you're using. So I'm sure a lot of people want to check that out. And thank you for offering that to everyone to check out. And otherwise, I do have one final question for you. And it is this. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Christy Whitman?
Love. Just not conditional love, but just love. The flow of pure positive energy to another person, to an animal, to an experience. It's just all an expansion of love.
My favorite quote, love is the answer. Now, what was the question?
Exactly.
So you just did it. Thank you. I fully agree. And What has no conditions but one condition? Unconditional love. And with that being said, thank you all for tuning in. Christy, thank you yet again. And until next time, everyone, journey well. Love you so, so much. And if you're feeling the call to come for a week retreat style Mystic Manor immersion, remember to go now and book your time to speak with me directly about stepping into the optimistic vortex at calendly.com/talk with Brandon while there are still spots left. Otherwise, I look forward to co-creating magic with you at the Mystic Manor.